Have you ever wondered why we age? Do we have to even accept aging? I truly believe we don't have to accept that at all. And I can help you understand the aging process and possibly even reverse your age, so long as you are willing to go deep into your mind and question everything you've been living so far. This podcast has been the product of my obsession as just a regular dad to not only live long to be around for my kids, but to thrive in living as long as possible. My aim is to inspire you through amazing real-life stories focusing on the mind, the body, and the spirit. We will look into the impact of trauma and methods to tap into the unconscious to tackle that stored trauma. I will go into the science of aging and aim to demystify the current technology, supplements, exercise routines, and nutritional practices. Most importantly, I'm going to learn with you. Together, we are going to crack the code to living a happy health span. Come and join me on Let's Grow Young. Just a quick disclaimer to this episode. This discussion is intended to provide education on the background and state of the art of photobiomodulation. All references to photobiomodulation and its applications are for educational purposes only. I'm not a doctor, and neither is James. Therefore, the information covered in this episode should not be taken as medical advice. If you are interested in red light therapy, consult your doctor or dermatologist about the best treatment plan for you. James, thank you for coming on. Apologies if I don't get this right, but you are the CEO of NovoThor, the founder of NovoThor. And NovoThor, as I understand it, has won various awards for elite performance and some export awards as well. Is that correct? Or is there anything else that needs to be added to that?
There's nothing completely wrong with what you said, but the company is called THOR Photomedicine. I am people would like to declare me as being the inventor of the NovoThor. True, I suppose. Only as much as it was such an obvious thing for me. I don't feel like I've invented anything. I just merely made a product that we used to make decades ago, which we started with a single beam and then a cluster of beams, then large clusters of beams, and then suddenly did the whole body. It was just a natural evolution. Yes, I designed or conceived of the NovoThor. The company is actually called THOR Photomedicine, and I'm founder CEO of THOR Photomedicine.
Superb. And I've been to your offices in Amersham, which is not very far.
Of course, yes.
Very lovely people that I met there, including James King Sharp.
Right, yes.
Yeah, it's a very nice bunch of guys and a great team you've got there. I've been doing so much reading and so much research into red light therapy. I almost feel like I could talk to you for days about this. And in fact, I've got lunch in Windsor after this, and I thought to myself, maybe I should just invite James to Windsor because and talk to you about it over lunch. But I think the production company would have had a few stresses with that if we did that. Now, I guess first and foremost, I must thank you for giving me the opportunity to. I could kind of use the word test your product. This entire podcast is around trying to demystify this term that I don't like called biohacking, and demystify it for the layman. Your team gave me access to the whole light therapy bed for, I think I had 6-7 sessions. I'm not going to get onto the results of my results until a bit later, but I was very appreciative of that. So just for the record, thank you for giving me access, especially for a product which is not really available for single-use sessions. And thanks for your team for accommodating me with that. Where I would like to start with this is that if you could just give us an overview of what is red light therapy and the origins of it.
Oh, sure. Red light therapy is the biohacker name for photobiomodulation. So photobiomodulation is what's called is a mesh term, a medical subject heading. It's officially registered on the National Institute of Health website. That's owned by the United States government. And it runs a very famous medical database called PubMed. So if you ever want to look up something medical, you go to PubMed, and photobiomodulation is the official term for this technology. It doesn't just have to be red light in order to work. It's certainly very good. If you want to get light deeper, you need to move a little bit further along the spectrum into the near infrared spectrum. But what is it? It's the application of light over injuries to promote healing and relieve pain, is the short answer in layman's language. for science fiction fans and people over the age of 50, they will all have seen. And by the way, if you're not over 50, just talk to your grandparents about this. There used to be, in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, there used to be a TV show called Star Trek. And on Star Trek, when somebody was injured, they'd be taken to the sick bay. The doctor would get out a laser beam. They'd aim the laser at the injury, and the injury would heal instantly. So that's photobiomodulation.
So are you saying that, I'm almost 50, but are you saying that all that just wasn't Hollywood production value? There was some science to that?
Yes, there's now about 9,700 academic articles published on this subject, including over 1,000 randomized placebo-controlled clinical trials, which is the gold standard of medicine. And here in the UK, it's a recommended treatment in the National Health Service. So the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence, which is the body that evaluate medicines and technologies for use on the National Health Service, now recommend our treatment for use on cancer patients, not for treating cancer, but for treating the side effects of high-dose chemotherapy and radiotherapy, where these patients lose the ability to eat, drink, or swallow due to the ulceration they get in their mouth and the sores they get through their throat. And for kids who have bone marrow transplants and high-dose chemotherapy, they get these ulcerations right the way through their gastrointestinal tract, all the way through to their anus. And over here in the UK, it's just being gradually now being used by the National Health Service to ameliorate those, just to reduce the incidence and severity of these sores, and more widely in the United States as well.
And why is red light therapy seen to be more effective than other forms of therapy?
Possibly because it probably gets to places where a lot of other therapies and drugs don't get to. It's very hard to have any drug get inside of mitochondria. So mitochondria is well known as being the powerhouse of the cell. So the least people learn in school about it is that there's hundreds and thousands of these little machines inside every single cell of the body, and their job is to take up oxygen and glucose and make energy. They are also the source of our free radicals in the body, which people know rightfully they're associated with aging and inflammation and cell death. But actually we do need this in short, small quantities. So when you do exercise, you make these lots of what's called reactive oxygen species. And in short bursts for sensible amounts, for sensible amounts of exercise time and stress, these things are actually very important to your health and longevity. They activate things like stem cells. They sort of activate your immune system, give you a little bit of good stress in your body. But too many of these reactive oxygen species for too long leads to what doctors call oxidative stress, where these reactive oxygen species overwhelm the body's natural antioxidant mechanisms and ends up causing inflammation, cell death, the aging process generally. Photobiomodulation is very good at actually reversing that process, or certainly substantially reducing oxidative stress or free radicals, and that means that people have less inflammation, less pain, and they heal more quickly. And there's a bit more to it than that, because there's a whole cascade of events where growth factors get activated, which is another level of nerdery, which I do on medical podcasts.
I think that's the important thing. You've mentioned medical podcasts. Can we just go into a few terms there? You mentioned mitochondria, and so could we just describe what the mitochondria is? I think a lot of people deem that to be your gut, but how would you break that up?
Right. So every single cell in the body, that's your skin cells, your muscle cells, your tendons, your bones, your nerves, the immune cells that carried around by your bloodstream, the nerves inside your head, your central nervous system, and your brain, eye, spinal cord. Everything has got mitochondria inside of them, hundreds, if not thousands of them. And they're tiny little, what they call organelles. There must be, because cells are pretty tiny to start with, let alone mitochondria. It's like, it's got to be a little more than a pinprick or maybe that's a good analogy, pinprick size organelle, and their job is to take up oxygen. Every single breath of air that you take is about 20% oxygen, and every molecule of oxygen that gets into your bloodstream is used by mitochondria. It is the sole consumer of oxygen. And that's where it all goes. It gets carried around in the bloodstream, gets to every single cell, goes through the membrane of the cell, It's taken up by these mitochondria, and oxygen is what causes the electrons to flow that make the energy in your body, in every single cell of the body. So it's absolutely critical. When you stop breathing, your mitochondria stop working and you die. That's how you die. But conversely, if you have good functioning mitochondria, this is what red light therapy does for people, then the underlying causes of aging, the underlying causes of inflammation, and ultimately death seem to be, these negative effects seem to be reduced by red light therapy, or photobiomodulation to use the correct technical term. And it's red and or near infrared light can do this. Even outside of that part of the spectrum, we can have these effects.
How does the mitochondria get affected as we age? And scientifically, what is it about the red light therapy in particular that triggers a repair of the mitochondria? And I don't even know if the word repair is correct, or whether the word is around electromagnetic energy and so on. And so I guess what we're trying to understand is we're probably born with a very healthy mitochondria. As we age, it gets damaged. Traditional medicine maybe comes in a little bit too late. And at what point should the red light therapy come in? And specifically, what is it about that red light therapy that starts repairing the mitochondria?
There's about 10 questions there. See if I can remember any of them. The one that I've left thinking about is like at what age? I can tell you that there was a study done in Canberra, Australia, on children who are prematurely born. They have a lot of developmental problems. One is the eye. They have not that most prematurely born children die, but a lot of obviously prematurely born children die. They never make it out of hospital alive. It's something of the order of, you get about something like 90% survival, but with some birth problems, birth-related defects. One of which is breathing problems. That's the leading cause of death in prematurely born babies. And also damage to the eyes, retinopathy of prematurity, REP. Is the disease. And so they did a study on these prematurely born baby. This is how early you could start, to answer your question. And the goal was to get see if you could prevent the degeneration of the retina, that's the back of your eye, so these children don't go blind from birth. That was the goal. It failed it wasn't a successful experiment. The reason was, according to the principal investigator, we went for dinner and she explained that when these children are in incubators and they lie on their backs and they put the red light therapy above them, shine it in their eyes. It's very bright, as you know. And a little bit of red light in your open eye is a good thing, but it still goes through your eyes even if you close them. But the kids, of course, the babies, the prematurely born babies, didn't look at the red light. They went, oh, wince, close their eyes, and then they turn their heads away, or the other way, and they got their eyes closed. And they didn't really get the light therapy in their eyes. They didn't get the benefit. But something unexpected happened. And that is that there was an 11% mortality death of prematurely born babies in the study in the control group that had no photobiomodulation. The active photobiomodulation group had 100% survival.
Wow.
So it's now, there wasn't a follow-up investigation on to see, by the way, COVID was just about to kick off at that point, and that study needs to be redone and reinvestigated. It'd be interesting to take a closer look at the lungs in the children who survived. Did they survive with better development in their lungs, less of the breathing problems that normally is commonly associated with death of prematurely born babies? So that's how early you can do it. Yes, you're right. From an earlier state, I mean, mitochondria should be in peak form when you're young, and just gradually as you get older, yes, the mitochondria, they break down. They don't get repaired so well, as there is a repair system. Generally, photobiomodulation seems to help repair cells and organelles like mitochondria in the body. So yes, as we get older, the more important it becomes. I don't think there's ever a time when it's too early. If we're talking about babies who are born many weeks prematurely, if it's good for them, I would think it more like nutrition. I mean, doctors would always be concerned that if they would say something like, I don't believe in any medicine that doesn't do you some harm. There's a dose response to everything. You can't have something which is all good and no bad. And they would be absolutely right to say so. Even too much water, you can drown in it. Too much oxygen is bad for you. And too much light is bad for you. And there is definitely a limit to how much is good and how much is healthy. But I think there's also things that are good for your general health and longevity, like, you need a certain amount of water and you need a certain amount of oxygen. You need a certain amount of vitamins and minerals and essential fatty acids and fiber in your diet. And PBM could be a perfectly healthy supplement you take all your life, is my estimate. To answer your question, I didn't answer all of your questions, but you ought to get a word in edgeways at some point.
No, that's okay. I'm enjoying listening.
I will just say one extra thing. There is clear evidence that photobiomodulation triggers defensive mechanisms in the body. So when our National Health Service uses it on cancer patients, they don't wait for them to develop the oral mucositis. They pre-treat them with every visit to the hospital, and to use the technical word that radiation oncologists know, with every fraction of radiation. So with every dose of radiation they get, and typically that's every day for 6 weeks, they will have photobiomodulation to help protect them from the negative effects of radiation on their healthy cells. So radiation doesn't just kill cancer cells, it kills good cells as well. There's lots of nasty side effects. I could list them. There's a lot of them. It seems to protect the patients from the adverse effects on healthy cells. And no, for those people wondering, oh dear, what if it protects the cancer cells from the chemotherapy, from the radiation, which is supposed to be saving the patient's life? And the clear evidence is, after many thousands of patients and follow-up studies up to 12 and a half years, is that photobiomodulation does not reduce the efficacy of chemotherapy or radiation. But it does clearly in lab studies. They do experiments on cells. They'll get a Petri dish, grow some cells, maybe some skin cells, maybe some immune cells in there, and they will treat them with photobiomodulation light. They'll look at them and nothing will happen. And this is what we believed back in the 1980s. But then somebody did an experiment to see, those healthy cells, let's try and kill them now. Let's kill them with things like methanol, which is like a wood alcohol. Let's kill them with X-rays, for example. LPS is something any scientist would know about, to stress cells. And when you've pre-treated them with photobiomodulation light, these cells survive these toxic insults better. They have less of a reaction to them than those that were in a control group with no photobiomodulation. And this is evident in our National Health Service now. People getting treatment before they develop any sores in their mouth caused by the radiation are having much lower incidence and much lower severity of oral mucositis. And this is possibly the same mechanisms as why it works for people who do exercise, who are liable to get post-exercise soreness. You should have less delayed onset muscle soreness as a result of PBM, and the evidence is abundantly clear. Photobiomodulation reduces post-exercise soreness. People end up being able to train harder, more frequently, and therefore they get stronger.
I'm smiling because my last two, so every Friday I do my big workouts, and I'm not going to get onto the results at the moment from PDM, but the last two workouts I've done on a Friday, I've not done PDM. And I'm feeling bloody sore today. I'm feeling really, really sore today. So there's certainly something there. You mentioned the 1980s, actually, just in the response that you gave. One of the queries I've got is that phototherapy, as it was called, is nothing new. And I think it's been around for 100 odd years. And so I think that there's a link to history with phototherapy. And there seems to be a trend for this picking up now. Why do you think it's not being picked up at the pace that it's being picked up at the moment?
So phototherapy is a big umbrella term for lots of different light therapies. So you can say phototherapy for depression, as in a seasonally affective disorder. seasonal affective disorder, where people's lack of of sunshine, daily blue, and particularly it tends, they say, the blue end of the spectrum, leads to people being depressed, particularly in the northern hemisphere, the northern parts of the northern hemisphere. So, the likes of Norway, Sweden, Finland, and the like, notoriously. So a lack of daylight. So a blue light or a white light therapy with making sure plenty of blue in there is supposed to help people, and apparently does help people, reduce SAD. So that's under the umbrella of blue light of phototherapy. For example, we need vitamin D to help our health. We can get that from sunlight. That's a form of phototherapy, if you like. They have blue light therapies on prematurely born babies. So they get something called hyperbilirubinemia. It's a jaundice, they go yellow. And prematurely born babies go in a blue light machine that helps solve this problem. That's also called phototherapy. So there's a lot of phototherapies. So light therapies are well known in healthcare and medicine as we said, good for your vitamin D, good for SAD, good for jaundiced babies. So light therapy is alive and well in medicine. And I like to remind any skeptical doctors that everybody knows that light therapy or light is good for your health, and it's used in hospitals already. So nobody should be surprised if light has other effects on the body. Now we're at the other end of the spectrum with red light because it goes deeper.
Shall I tell you a secret? There's a skeptical doctor in this house. But over the last 6 to 8 weeks, she's become far less skeptical because she's been seeing some results.
Send her on one of my webinars then, which I do most Thursdays. They're different subjects. This one's on this week we're doing oncology. So
I will for sure. And sorry for butting in there. I think one of the things we actually spoke about, and I am sad. We do sit and have conversations about this. Is the difference between light therapy and other forms of therapy. And from what I understand is it's all to do with wavelength. And so as an example, my wife has had a bad back for quite a while, and MRIs have shown there's actually nothing really that physically wrong. And so I think she may benefit from something like this, but we then switch.
Be careful for your wife's sake. It doesn't reveal anything wrong, but it's well known. It's that like 50% of back pains are unsuccessful through surgery. That's because they go in, they can see in the X-ray that something wrong, and they go in, they fix it. It turns out that wasn't the cause of the pain. So these scans are, I don't know what it's, but it's something like 50% reliable. You can have pain without any apparent injury. You can have injury without any apparent pain. It's just, I don't think you didn't say it, but your wife wasn't not making up anything. She can have, it could be a muscular problem. It could be myofascial pain or something like that.
This is what I think, and this is why I'm going on to wavelengths. And so I think it'll be useful to understand the benefits of red light therapy because of the wavelength and the penetration that has different layers of muscle and tissue. Sorry, I'm not a scientific advisor. I'm trying to use language which may come across incorrectly, but I understand the actual length of the wave from this light has an impact on how deep it can go into the tissue.
Yes, but not as it's oversimplified on the internet, or just plain wrong is another word for that. There is a window. So obviously there's a big spectrum in the electromagnetic spectrum: ultraviolet, blue, green, yellow, orange, red light, near infrared light, and then there's a very big spectrum called infrared. And after that, you're getting into microwaves and radio waves, kind of over there. And there is a particular, I'm going to call it a dip. In other words, in the spectrum. So blue light, green light, find it very hard to get past the skin. Yellow light doesn't get much past the skin. And the reason is, was clear, because you can see me. That's because light is not going into my body. It's bouncing off of my body. You can only see me because the light's reflecting off me. So something like, I don't know, I haven't checked for visible light spectrum. It's going to be something like 80-90% of light bounces off of my body. That's how we see each other, the reflected light. If it was all absorbed by me, then you wouldn't see me at all. So it's because of reflection you can see me, and that's the visible light spectrum. When we get to red light, though, actually some of it does begin to go in. And then the near infrared spectrum, this is on the cusp of between red and infrared. And people often get mixed up with photobiomodulation. They hear about infrared and photobiomodulation, and they mix it up with the heat lamps that you hear about.
This is something which I did want to ask you. So if you choose to answer it here, that's great. The difference between red light, infrared, and heat lamps.
Right. So blue, green, yellow doesn't penetrate. Red light does. Near infrared penetrates even better. Then you get past the near infrared spectrum. And then it gets into a whole band which doesn't penetrate at all. It's actually worse than the visible light spectrum. So infrared radiation, we can get, if you want to get into nanometers, I can get into nanometers as well, exactly where those points are. It's not a straight line, but yes, the the far infrared and mid-infrared ranges don't penetrate the skin, and neither does the visible light spectrum either, except for the red a bit and the near-infrared a lot.
So James, for the normal guy like me, jumping onto the tube, going into work, going to hit the gym in the evening because I think a bit of sauna is good for me with a bit of a cold plunge. The gym now has an infrared sauna, and it's also got a red light therapy. Which one do I go to?
Well, my expertise is obviously on the photobiomodulation side, so I understand the mechanisms of that. My limited understanding of infrared radiation on the body is that it improves blood flow, and there is absolutely no doubt improved blood flow is good for most of us, certainly for aches and pains, if not other things as well. So there's certainly no harm in doing it. Photobiomodulation seems to have the additional benefit of going deeper and of also having these wonderful effects on mitochondria. So has anybody done a competitive situation, one wavelength versus another? Certainly in our clinical trials that we do with the NovoThor, we put heating elements in there so that you get the infrared in the placebo group and you get the visible red and then with the near infrared in a treatment group. And there is clearly substantial differences in outcomes for our treatment group versus the heat lamp or the heat. They're actually they're heating elements, so it projects infrared radiation through the NovoThor into the control group.
Just in summary, what are those differences? It is something I'm looking at the moment, researching myself at the moment.
I suppose what we really need is we need to have a control group that don't get either to know what the difference is for the infrared. We just compare ourselves with the heat. By the way, heat is a form of radiation. Heat basically vibrates the molecules in your body, and your experience of vibration is heat. So when microwave radiation goes into your food to cook it or heat even a mug of water, it causes vibration of the water molecules, and that is heat. And you put your finger in it and ouch, it hurts, or you put your body in and it's not, you don't want to microwave yourself, but infrared lights have a less intense version of microwaving your food. It vibrates the water molecules in your body. And I suppose if we did a clinical trial, we would normally do photobiomodulation versus heat, just because there is some heat with our treatment. When you've been in the NovoThor, you can feel some warmth from it. So we want to replicate that warmth, and we do it for placebo reasons because people have a soothing sensation from the heating elements. But only just in talking to you now, it has occurred to me, hey, we're actually doing something potentially therapeutic with the warmth as well. So actually, they are getting an active warming treatment like an infrared lamp, but with PBM combined when they have it. So you're getting both, I suppose. There's no doubt you get warm in there, so it's a bit of both. I've not used an infrared lamp. I imagine do they add steam to these saunas as well?
No, they don't. So I use traditional saunas, and followed by an 8 degrees cold plunge works for me. It ignites the sirtuins, the good stresses. It kicks in autophagy and all that sort of stuff. It works for me. I've tried the heat lamps, and I'm not being biased just because you're on the call, but I did find the NovoThor a better experience. And the reason being is that the heat lamps, It's a very, very basic reason. The heat lamps, you're standing up or you're sitting down. And with the NovoThor, I feel in a much more meditative state because I'm lying down and I've got heat on my back, on my front, and you've got the lights coming in. And I think that aspect is something people don't talk about. Having a heat lamp where you're literally standing up trying to relax, opposed to lying down on the NovoThor where you're still getting the heat. I think mentally and emotionally that makes quite a big difference.
And if you want to talk about autophagy and you want to read data on that,
I was trying not to. Because
yeah, exactly. The magic of PBM is I can show you all of those life-sustaining mechanisms that it's not proven in clinical trials that anybody in human using photobiomodulation has lived longer. You'd have to follow them for 100 years and see who lived longest. It's been done in flies. They do flies have a very short life cycle, and over sort of 10 weeks, you can see that the flies that get PBM have a much better lifespan than those that don't get the PBM treatment. So that's flies, that's not humans, but you can look and see what it does to mitochondria.
Conscious of time and conscious of what I said at the top of the call, that I could speak to you for days about this, ideally over a lunch in Windsor or something. But does PBM, in your understanding, does it have a positive effect on autophagy? Does it ignite?
Yes. Oh no, it's clearly laboratory evidence has demonstrated that in lab studies. So there's good evidence for it, but it's hard to do on humans. We're not really, we don't get approval to go kill people afterwards and look inside them. You can do histology, but there's studies on the brain in animals, and you can see, because in lab animals, you kill them and you look at their brains and you compare them with brains that did get the treatment, you can see the difference.
I just want to change tack slightly and talk about the technology that I've used. Now, if I describe it, I hate going into an MRI. And so when I came into the Health Optimization Summit and I met your team there, I saw the machine. I said, no, I don't think I can go into it because it reminds me too much of an MRI. But then when I used it, it's nothing like an MRI because you've got the open space. Your head is, it's free and you can open and close it quite freely. And so I think from a user perspective, and there's a lot of people who don't like MRIs, obviously because of that suffocation feeling, it's nothing like that. It does look a bit Star Trek-y just because of the number of red lights coming out of it. But after one use, it was very easy for me to use. And so maybe you could just describe the technology to us, the number of lights, where the actual bed is produced, and some of the quality mechanisms around it. But then I think you've also got the other type of applications as well, with the actual handheld treatment and so on.
Well, the NovoThor's got almost 1,000 emitters in there. It's a clamshell type of design, and as you would describe, you can see out the end past your feet. You can see there's big space at each end, so at the end of your feet or your head, so you never feel that trapped, and always along the side. So it's a part of medical device regulations that we have a 10 centimeter gap, so that you can't get sort of a limb trapped in there or something, is part of the medical device regulation. So we have that required gap along there. And for people who are concerned, you can lie inside with it fully open. So you just get one side, and the top is, because it opens up like a clamshell device, you lift it up, you climb inside. If you didn't want to, you don't have to pull it down, or you can pull it halfway down. And anybody who's had any claustrophobic feelings has been comfortable with using it halfway down. Next thing you know, 3/4 of the way down, 90% of the way down. Everybody gets actually to enjoy it in the end.
I am medically claustrophobic, and I had it closed all the way down. How many bulbs do you have in there? Is bulbs the right word?
They're not bulbs. The bulbs are...
This is the entire purpose of this podcast, James. I know it sounds, well, this guy's saying bulbs, but come on, talk to me. Yes. What do you have? How many lamps do you have in there?
They're light-emitting diodes, LEDs. So that's the form of technology that's in there. And do you know what? I can't remember. It's approximately 1,000 in there. Can't remember exactly. About high 900s, I think. 900 and something.
Where do you have these manufactured?
Okay, we're manufactured in the States, so most of our business is in the United States. So we've got 3 companies. There's THOR Photomedicine Limited UK, Inc. in the United States, and we have a limited company in Ireland for our Irish business. So we're the parent companies here in the UK. And the manufacturing, some of it occurs over here for the desktop systems, or all of it occurs in the UK for the desktop systems, and all of it occurs for the NovoThor. It's all in the United States. So we've got a manufacturing facility there. They're almost exactly the same. We use the same wavelengths in the NovoThor as we do in our hospital systems. Well, not to say the NovoThor is in the hospital, our NovoThor is in hospitals as well. But there's the same wavelengths, same technologies in both of them. Just one's very big, and the other ones are handheld systems, and we use same wavelengths, similar intensities.
I'm very keen to talk about the thing that I'm passionate about, as well as aging and longevity. The specific is performance and athletic performance. And in fact, I'd reached out to NovoThor because I have a competition in December at my almost 50 age. Somehow I'm still competing with people half my age. But I was looking to gain an extra 1 to 3% in my performance. And hence I thought, let's give this a go. Talk to me about impact on athletes and elite athletes, and how it's being used by such individuals and teams.
So it's being used to improve strength, endurance, and recovery by athletes. It's again, most of our business is in the United States, NFL, so American football to us over here, MSL as they call it now, Major Soccer League over there. So we've got those customers, NHL and the National Hockey League, NBA. There's the basketball and there's the baseball. So all those 3-letter acronym American sports is a lot of business, a lot of track and field. Nike's Oregon Project team used our NovoThor when Mo Farah was part of that team, so he was a NovoThor user over there. And then it's widely used by movie stars and billionaires as well. So that's our American sort of business. Used, as I said, for improving strength, endurance, and recovery. So people can exercise more with this, with getting less fatigue. It is, as somebody's used it for years, myself, and eventually got one in my own house and got to use it every day, though I do travel a lot.
Very lucky man.
I was overseas 20 days a month, so I got it to use about 10 days a month. But now travel's down to about half of what it was pre-pandemic now. So I'm home 20 days a month now for that. So I'm 61. I just been to Barcelona. Again, our apartment is on the 9th floor. The lift goes to the 8th floor. When we get it's a big old building, but a tiny lift. When we get there, we pack the luggage in when we arrive, pack my wife in, close the door. She presses the button, and I have to climb the stairs, except I run up the stairs. And so because I've been doing this journey for 10 years, I know what it's like to run up 8 floors and try and keep up with the lift. And then we got the NovoThor, and then I've got to use it more and more regularly as it goes in the home. And of course, as you age, so when I was 50, it was hard work. Now, at the age of 61, I can comfortably beat the lift to the 8th floor.
There must be other things in your routine as well, outside of the red light therapy as well, that keep you healthy.
Yeah, before we had a NovoThor, I was heading that way. I was surprised when I was 40 years old, my brother came round for Christmas and he greets me at the door and grabs the spare flesh around my cheeks or wherever it was and shakes me by the, oh, look at you, 40-year-old, sort of teased me for, I hadn't even noticed it was happening. So this is now over 20 years ago. And he said, that's when I took an interest in the Atkins diet. It was popular at the time. So I began to watch my carbohydrate intake.
But you were eating lots of fat.
Not necessarily. It wasn't against it, but I didn't. This high protein, high fat thing is I'm mostly just focused on eating food with less padding, meaning, not eating a pizza, eating the contents of a pizza, the good bits, eating the vegetables and the meat or the fish that might be on the pizza would be more, and avoid the padding. So I've spent 20 years eating less and less padding. So less bread, pasta, potatoes, all the starchy carbohydrate foods, very low sugar diet. It's not like I never have any sugar. I love baklava. And I like honey on half a slice of toast. But I say toast. It's not really bread that I eat. I eat a seed cake that we make ourselves. So we take if you imagine a few mugs of all the good seeds you can think of, and then we take about one of several mugs and blend it into a powder that behaves like flour. You then mix in the seeds and with some water and some olive oil, and you put it in a bread tin, and you bake it for about an hour and a half at a high temperature, and you end up with something you can actually slice like bread, but it's not really bread. And I would have.
You're a healthy man. So you're a healthy man. PBM has maybe taken you to another level, would you say?
I would definitely from the exercise things. Yes, I think the area where it's probably in multiple areas, but what it's done for my vitality, I think it's kept me more vital. Just generally fatigue in life. I seem to have the energy of a teenager versus what I might have been in my 60s.
Coming back to the elite performance and what you've just said there, what's the linkage, if any, to a thing called ATP conversion? And if I'm sure you're familiar with that, but maybe we can define what ATP conversion is.
Can you define it? Because I can't. I don't know what ATP conversion means.
The way in which I understand it is that your body has a thing called mTOR and ATP, and ATP. And ATP, as the way I understand it, is again your body's way of using your cells to pump greater oxygen around your body when you're exercising, and that's my kind of layman's perspective to it. Something you said earlier about almost a domino effect of energy going through your body. I'm paraphrasing to what you said. Something to do with electromagnetic energy that helps with the conversion of oxygen and ATP in your body. And I think I think red light therapy, from what I've read in other articles, has some sort of impact on that.
Well, one of the first things you can measure in laboratory studies in cells when you apply photobiomodulation to them is this consumption of oxygen goes up. And the reason the cells start consuming more oxygen is because they're being absorbed. The mitochondria are transporting more electrons. So people might have heard of the electron transport chain. This is inside mitochondria, and the terminal enzyme of the electron transport chain absorbs red light. And it seems when it absorbs this red light, the ability to pull electrons and transport them along the electron transport chain and then through that terminal enzyme. For the nerds in the room, it's cytochrome C oxidase. So cytochrome C oxidase absorbs light. It's the primary receptor of oxygen. So oxygen grabs electrons off the electron transport chain normally. And this is the job of oxygen in the body. When you breathe, its job is to find its way ultimately to cytochrome C oxidase in mitochondria inside every single cell of the body. And the oxygen, when it grabs electrons off the electron transport chain, they move, and as they move through the electron transport chain, you improve. And I know this is, you lose a lot of people at this point, but your mitochondria has got a matrix in the middle, it's got an intermembrane space. The electrical difference between them is what's called the proton gradient. And when you've got enough proton gradient, it drives ATP synthase. It's the synthesis of ATP energy. So as oxygen grabs electrons in the electron transport chain, and the electrons move along, you get more proton gradients, which then drives ATP synthase. You make more energy, ATP. And PBM seems to enable that to work better. When it's dysfunctional, you make reactive oxygen species, which become free radicals. And PBM seems to actually means you make fewer free radicals, you get more energy. Fewer free radicals means less inflammation, less pain, and therefore less tiredness, less fatigue, less depression, a lot of things inflammation leads to. And you've got more energy available in the cells to do more of what cells are supposed to do when they're fit and healthy and working well. I'm not sure if I've answered your question.
Just bringing this all back again in terms of the impact on me. What I've tried to do there, fairly unsuccessfully, is from my language, try and define what I think the science is going on with PBM. You can describe it in a lot more detail than I can. But what I can do is talk to the results that I've been seeing and to myself personally. So if we go back to why I came here, to see what performance results I could get. Now, through some of my research I've done, I've heard quotes from athletes such as Justin Gatlin in terms of what PBM has done for them. So I started using the NovoThor bed prior to my workout, and I went in quite skeptical. But then having had the treatment, session 1, didn't really feel anything. Session 2, session 3, didn't really feel anything. But then from session 4 onwards, I found that everything else was equal outside to those sessions. I suddenly found that from session 4, my performance straight after the gym, straight into the gym after the session, just went through the roof. And I'm not talking just sitting on a bench and lifting some weights. I'm talking 1.5 hour, 2,000 calorie, very high intensity workouts. The running times, the sled pushing times, the recovery times suddenly started going out of the roof. And as I was doing this, my training partner said, "What on earth is going on?" And I said, "It might actually be the PBM." The next week, did the same. Again, went through the roof. And this chain continued. And went back home, took a read, and I said, what could this possibly be? And I just, as a layman, read something about electromagnetic energy. And to me, as a layman, who is not a scientific person and not going to pretend to be either, to me, that read like my cells are bouncing electromagnetic energy through my body. And when Justin Gatlin said he does this before a race, that made absolute sense to me, because I think I was beginning to experience that stuff. Now, not having done the red light treatment over the last couple of weeks, I did feel a change in my performance levels. I don't know whether that is just mental or whether that's real, but I will monitor it. Additionally, I believe my skin condition was better, and I think I was sleeping better as well. And so I firmly believe you've got something with this product, and I firmly believe that whether this product's been around for 100 years or not, the way in which it's being put forward by your company, I think is fantastic. My only angst is that I can't get one into my house. I really hope that you do start to develop products that people can actually, the layman like me, can actually bring into my house and start using. So for me, the NovoThor Red Light Therapy, and I specifically say NovoThor Red Light Therapy because I've done the research around your product compared to other products, it firmly goes into my camp of something that's going to stay in my recommendation as helping long-term longevity. So I think for me personally, it works. And if it works for a layman like me who's aging, still trying to compete with kids, I think it's fantastic. And if all the other things you've mentioned around treating children, treating people with the impacts of cancer, there's a friend who I have who's looking into it for alopecia. If these things come all together and start becoming available on the NHS, I think you're creating more than a product for everyday people and billionaires. You're creating a product that could change the way in which lots of health treatments are dealt with. What's the future? What's the future of NovoThor? What's your objectives? What's your mission at the moment?
We're on a mission to heal and relieve pain. Our goal is to put photobiomodulation in every corner of every department of every hospital in the whole world. We've got some milestones for that. And we defined it quite specifically. We're going to have this therapy established as a first-line medical treatment for 100 different diseases in 100 different countries by the time I'm 100 years old. So we've got about 39 years to go on that. We've got interim goals of achieving 10 diseases, 10 countries, 10 years, and short-term goals of 3 diseases, 4 countries within 5 years.
Wow. No. As someone who works on general life coaching and also for one of the biggest banks in the world, the mission and vision you've stated is very specific. It's broken down into very clear targets, I think, it sounds like an amazing mission and a vision. Not just that, but clear steps to get there. So I hope you achieve that, James. And I'm certainly trying to implement your mission and vision in this household. And hoping that my wife will attend one of your sessions, who is beginning to become a convert, actually. Thank you all for listening. What you've heard about today, to me, looked like something from outer space when I first used the product. However, the use of red and near-red infrared light therapy has been around for over 100 years, known as photobiomodulation. It is something which gave me so much energy, better sleep, and better skin after using it weekly for 10 weeks. I want you all to ask your doctors and any other health professionals you meet about red light treatment as a possible source of therapy for you. I firmly believe red light therapy is going to be available through the health services in the very near future. I just wish I could have a machine at home. If you've enjoyed what you've listened to and you want to find out more, please hit the subscribe button or the follow button. If you want to find out more about me, please visit my website, www.sanjpathak.com, my Instagram profile @sanjpathaklifecoach, or just simply send me a message on my email, which is sanj@sanjpathak.com. Thank you for listening.